Ha-ra-ra-boom-yay, ha-ra-ra-boom-yay. Hey, it's your old friend Snagglepuss. And I figure, if the roo's away, why don't the cat play? As it were. And speaking of plays, DC Comics recently came out with a recent comic featuring yours truly, Snagglepuss, in this new serial magazine called Exit Stage Left, the Snagglepuss Chronicles. So, for all you Snagglepuss fans out there, be sure to grab yourselves a copy. But in the meanwhile, why don't I give my personal review of it? But since it's already been well received by the general public, and since the internet is best known for people dissecting things in ways that are just completely crazy, I figure, why don't I do something a little different? Instead of heaping praise onto this comical world, how about I break it down in only the way that the internet could really do it? So, take a seat, and let's go through this treat. So, this story here starts off with us introducing this couple trying to get into this play, and it's introducing, I'm a very famous playwright. It's always been my dream, even though I grew up in the deep American South. I always had the love of the stage. And so we are introduced in this comic to my stage play, in which these characters, in a dramatic slice of life, deal with family concerns and of the men in this lady's life, in this female dog's life, not being very kind to her, being very selfish and self-centered. Now, let me bring up something really quick. And this is where I'm going to get into the critical sort of phase of it. I'm a very famous playwright, and this is a very famous stage play in New York City. And you notice something, that these characters, this human being playing as a dog, has this dollar store puppy schnoot on his face. And same with the cat lady, the pink pantherish cat lady, the pink lion lady. She's also got a puppy schnoot on her nose. And they're very cheapish looking costumes, which, if you can play the character well, the costume doesn't matter so much. I'm well aware of this. And this wouldn't be so bad. But then it comes to mind, this comic was seen as being very woke. As understanding social implications of certain stigmas and things such as that nature. But here's the thing, I don't think that this is in my best interest, to have a human man and a Pink Panther lady on the stage enacting these dogs. Because then the question comes to mind, in this world where there's anthropomorphic animals, are there indeed anthropomorphic dogs that could be playing the part of these roles on stage? And I don't have to answer that question. The comic answers that question. Because at the end of the ending throws the Pink Panther lady, or I think she's a mountain lion, I don't know which it is, but the pink cat lady throws her hands in the air and goes, "My heart is a kennel of thieves," and then the curtain closes, and then we are introduced to our audience. And in the audience, there are two people on stage left. They're not in the stage. I mean, I guess if we were on the stage, they'd be on the stage right. But in the audience, if the audience were a stage, they'd be on stage left. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? They're on the right side of the panel, is what I'm trying to say. Don't get confused. You see there's a dog lady there. And you see that there's like another dog person below. And it just, by the way, the look on her face though kind of says it all. Like, why are we so excited? Why are we so excited about this? I mean, those people up there, why are they basically culturally appropriating us? I mean literally. If we're talking about cultural appropriation and things like that, this is a woke comic. This is a comic that is seen as understanding social political viewpoints and being progressive. This is kind of a problem. Maybe they can play it off as like being a thing of the times, that this is literally a dog face moment where I'm putting dog faces on people who aren't dogs and having them play the role of dogs on the stage. But it's problematic to me for multiple reasons. Number one, I'm supposed to be progressive here. I'm supposed to be the protagonist. I'm supposed to be the person who's supposed to know that it's not right to put these dogs, people playing dogs on the stage, if I have actual dogs in the world to kind of use as people in the play. And number two, it seems kind of very selfish for me to be putting a pink cat lady on the stage when there might be qualified dogs to do it. I mean, literally, I'm a pink cat. That's literally selfish. I even put a human white male on the stage before I would put a dog on the stage. I mean, that's some messed up stuff, man. That's some messed up stuff. So what I'm saying here is, not a good idea. Particularly when we find out later that this lady, I think this lady is the same one who's supposed to be playing my wife. And yes, I mean playing my wife in real life, but also playing my wife because she's what do we call a faux pas? Faux pas! You see what I'm saying? It's this clever wordplay. My wife is a faux pas because the story actually comes in the play that my character is gay. And that wasn't too big of a surprise. It was advertised. And I don't mind it. It's really a cool addition to the story to have that in the background. So I reveal this by going to a club, and I have this fling with a Cuban American who came from Cuba and warns me of, how governments will step in and oppress their people. And I tell him that it won't happen here in America, and then I'm given the warning that it could always happen in America. So that's the tone of what we're setting in. We are in sort of the mid-1900s America during the Cold War. And so that's the setting of it. And I don't mind that story. And me being a part of that story is also very cool. I like it. But I think sometimes the story took over the characterization, and the character and me playing as a gay man, they sort of I don't see my own character in here so much, and this is where my second critique comes into. When I'm moving, it cuts to a scene where we're moving into this house, okay, and I am helping, my helper move my mother's armoire, and we're having a good time of it, rough time of it. He's joking that my mother was buried in the armoire, it's so heavy. But then my old friend Huckleberry Hound comes into the scene. Now I want you to pick what phrase you think I would have used to introduce or to be surprised and shocked that my good friend Huckleberry Hound showed up. So, here's the line. Heavens to Murgatroyd! Isn't it Huckleberry Hound? Huckleberry Hound, how you've been? I haven't seen you in a dog's age. Or, Huckleberry Hound, how's it been? I haven't seen you in a long while. My big blue friend, how's it going? You see, those sound like me, right? The words that were chosen. I'm just going to put up the picture. And you decide. Alright? Well, spank my daddy. Huckleberry Hound, how long has it been? My Lord in heaven, Heavens to Murgatroyd. That's not my new Heavens to Murgatroyd. Spank my daddy? Why would I ever say that? Who would ever say that? I even know gay people who say that. That's the weirdest expletive ever. I feel dirty. I feel like I gotta wash my fur coat. Get all that out of there. What is this? Ugh. No. You see, the line that I said is more Snagglepuss-ish. It's got more pizzazz. It's got more the Snagglepussness. Spank my daddy. It just sounds forced. And forced in a way, it's like, I guess I'm supposed to be portraying that my character's gay, but we've already established that. We established that when I was holding hands with that nice Cuban-American man. And now we're trying to, enforce it in a way that just seems unnatural. By the way, I'm supposed to be playing a faux pas. I'm supposed to be pretending that I'm not gay. I hope that everybody in the room currently, which is my faux pas wife, my helper, and Huckleberry Hound, are all in on the act, because if they're not, then saying spank my daddy aloud is sort of, giving myself away a little bit. I think I would be a little bit more reserved about that. I don't agree with this line. I don't agree with it at all. In fact, this one line ruined the entire comic for me, because if you didn't notice, the person who can read this comic can speak pretty fluently Snagglepuss-ish. And so every line that I was saying, he was saying in my voice. And I'm like, when I say it aloud, it was like, oh, I would never say that. Who'd say that? Snagglepuss wouldn't say that. Oh. He'd say, Heavens to Murgatroyd. Huckleberry Hound, I haven't seen you in a dog's age. Something, that's the line. It took the reader only a few seconds to come up with that line after seeing it. And it's like, why? I'm sorry if I'm spending so long on this. It's just like a single line in a play can take a person entirely out of the experience. And this was the line in the comic that literally drew me out. It threw me out to the curb and ran me over like an automobile, like a bus, like a big old fat bus. I don't know why. I just couldn't do it. So this is a problem. This not understanding the characters. The story is taking over the characters. The story that they're trying to tell is an important one. But by throwing these characters in here and not having them act as their characters, then it becomes what's called in the business a zipperback. A zipperback is when you throw anthropomorphic animals into a story where they're really not necessary, or they're not necessary to tell the story. They're taking advantage of an intellectual property in order to get more interest in it. Which, by the way, it's fine, because this story does deserve interest. But it feels forced. Particularly when they introduce Huckleberry Hound, and Huckleberry Hound's character is introduced as a writer. Now, let me tell you this. The Huckleberry Hound, this is certainly a sort of more artistic freedom by the author, because Huckleberry Hound is not educated. We're both Southern gentlemen, sure, I can believe that. That's my suspension of disbelief. I could be a very sophisticated debutante playwright. That is believable, because I sound very educated. I dress nicely. For a cartoon animal, I've got a nice little bow tie and nice little handcuffs, little cuffs around my paws, as it were. And I can believe that my character could be a sophisticated, debutante. Huckleberry Hound's character, the dog's character here, is blue collar. There's literally a reason that they chose him as a blue dog. Have you ever heard the term blue dog Democrat? I mean, he's literally a blue dog, and he's literally a blue-collar worker. He literally represents the common man. But in order to make his appearance work in this comic, they sort of force him to be an artist. Because why would the artist people allow this blue dog person who's not one of them to even be doing with their presence. It's like, oh, make him a famous author. Okay, fine. But know that in the original cartoons, Huckleberry Hound was not sophisticated. He had a southern drawl. He spoke very slowly and very methodically, and he didn't really come up with really fast quips in a really quick way. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine. That's his character, is a blue-collar common man. And so, once again, his lines, just like my lines, don't make any sense with the character that people are familiar with. Because literally, like, there was this one cartoon that I remember from the person who's playing me right now remembers from his childhood, and this is the only really Huckleberry cartoon that he's really familiar with, was when Huckleberry Hound was playing a truancy officer, and he was he was trying to get these kids and capture these snooty kids and trying to get them to go to school. And the scene and the story ends with, "I thank you for bringing these kids in, Huckleberry." "Oh, there's no such thing, teacher. I've always had a way of getting these kids in." Something like, I don't remember the exact lines. I'm paraphrasing here. And he goes, "Well, kids were never like that when we went to school." "We? I never went to no school." "Never went to school?" "That's right. So long, teacher." "Not so fast, Huckleberry." And then the end scene was them in math class. Like, 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 2 is 4, 3 and 3 is 5, 11, 12, 16. He is not educated. He is a common man. He's a man who works for a living. And that's how people can see him as a character. And so I guess this is going into my final sort of critique of the story. And that is, I'm fine with the story as it is. And for what it is. And I appreciate, if I look at this story separate from the history of Snagglepuss and Huckleberry Hound as characters, I'm fine with it. It's sort of like how Batman has evolved over time. How DC has evolved Batman. And I say this in such a way where I think my biggest problem with the story is that the evolution never really took place. It would literally be as if I went back to the 1960s and watched the Adam West version of Batman in all of its zany zilliness and craziness of a man walking around in a cape and all these colorful villains that are mostly harmless and all these zany sort of misadventures that they have but aren't really serious. They're more comic bookish and sort of doesn't take itself so seriously. It would be as if I went from the Adam West Batman and went right to the Dark Knight Batman with no interludes in between, with no evolution of character that made Batman a more serious character. I went from an Adam West Snagglepuss, or Hanna-Barbera Snagglepuss as it were, to a brooding DC Snagglepuss overnight. And it was too jarring. It was too much for me to handle. I couldn't handle it. It was just way too much. So that, I think, is my biggest critique here. And so, I end this story saying that the story itself is fine. The story itself takes a hard look at a time when being gay was socially destructive. Were you having to hide who someone was par for the course. And it's an important thing to share that narrative of those times of struggles and to remember and appreciate the sacrifices that others have made to bring us to where we are today. But on the other paw, this is why this story was, said to be woke in a way. But on the other paw, I get worried about us worrying so much about the wrongs of the past that we cannot enjoy the liberties of the present that have been presented to us through those hardships. I think it's important to remember that the word gay, back in those days, it meant something other than just one's sexuality. It was a state of mind, an unbridled joy, unrelentingly relentless to the point of madness. And I would say that back then, in those days, my character was certainly gay. In more than just one way. And while the DC Comics may see that the brooding and somber hero as the epitome of protagonistic behavior, one can also see what was lost in the character of Snagglepuss in this particular comic. I mean, if we go back to my old work, doesn't a mountain lion who gets shot at by a poacher and then makes quips about their aiming and proving immensatively also have a sense of being one bad mother? Shut your mouth! I'm talking about Snagglepuss, baby. Can you dig it? Don't get me wrong. Having woke stories about the hardships of history is a great addendum to have in our culture. To know the trials that our ancestors went through and to reflect on the trials that we all face in the present. However, we need to remember to not be woke 24/7. For if we remain that way, we risk becoming insomniatic. And those that cannot sleep cannot dream. And if we cannot dream, then we will never be able to see the world, dream of a world in which we want for one another. Nor will we see how to get there. I think, if anything, will save the story of this comic in my mind. Of this Exit Stage Left comic. Is that if in the end I, as a protagonist, come to grow and realize something, then when I'm cornered by the drumbeat of social stigma, I finally break. The art style around me and my perception shifts, bleeding from the serious DC overtones to the more toony and Snagglepuss-ish style. And I let it go. All the lies, all the deceptions, it all comes undone. I become sassy, and my spirit is set free. And in that moment, I realize that while the world around me has changed, the art style around the politicians who persecute me has not. That they are still in that drony sense that I was in just moments before. And I realize we are all but public figures. We all play the roles that our fans and our constituents want to see. We are what they want to be. We are all but puppets in their own narrative devices. And as long as we continue to enslave ourselves to the beat of this narrative expectation that they burden us with, we shall never be free. So when they decide that if I am found guilty, I am fine with that. For even if they send my body to prison, my spirit is free. Freer than those who sit upon their cushy jobs at their legislative desks. I thus relieve myself from the stage of the puppet show, and I leave them to find comfort in their cushy prison. Exit. Stage left.